Good morning, Lama. How are you?
Hi, C4 Raphael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. I figured it was important to talk to you because there's so many incredible things that you are doing in the world. I'm happy to be part of it. I
Wonderful.
want to get to this is an hour long, so we're going to have such a great time getting to know who you are and why you do what you do. Tell me, where were you born and who influenced you before the age of 10?
I was born in the former Soviet Union in the country called Ukraine. Back then, it was not a country, it was one of the Soviet republics. Ukraine is very well known these days thanks to the war that
Right.
Russia started against Ukraine. I'm half Russian, half Ukrainian. So
Mm,
to me, the entire affair doesn't make any sense. However, I grew up in the city of Kharkiv, which is right on the border between Russia and Ukraine. My earliest influence that really propelled me along this path that I've been on for the last 50 years was my grandfather. He was a Qigong master, a
mm,
grandmaster of the style called Qidao. Back in the old times, it was called True Hor, the Tibetan term which stands for energy art. Same thing as Qigong in
right,
Chinese.
right.
Unfortunately, Trohor doesn't sound great to an English speaking ear. If you tell them, what do you teach? Oh, I teach Trohor. They'll be like, I don't want to study that. So I basically use the Chinese term Qidao, which means the path of energy or the flow of energy. That has been something I've been studying for most of my life. My
Mm,
grandfather started teaching me some basics at a rather young age of 6.
wow, nice.
I continued until I was 18 when I joined the Soviet military
Mm,
and served in special forces for a couple of years. Ever since then, I've been dedicated to practicing and teaching what I learned back from my grandfather, but also from a number of Qigong and martial arts masters and meditation teachers and spiritual teachers who I've come across over the years.
incredible. So, how did your grandfather learn this? Do you know his story?
Yes, he learned it from his dad,
Mm,
who was at that time the lineage holder. So it's been in my family for many generations.
that's incredible. The fact that it's staying down in the generations of your family, that's pretty
Yeah, as
incredible.
I mentioned, I'm half Russian, half Ukrainian. On my father's side, the Russian side, my family came from the Altai region, just smack in the very geographical center of Asia, in the Altai Mountains, in the border between Russia and China and Kazakhstan. So
Mhm,
it's basically a place where the Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan shamanism are still practiced. There are 3 areas in Russia that are traditional Tibetan
mm,
Buddhist countries. One,
incredible.
Kalmykia in the European part of Russia. Another is Buryatia and Transbaikalia near the Baikal Lake, just north of Mongolia. And the other one is the Altai, where my family came from, and that's where it's still practiced to this day.
Mm, incredible. I've been studying Tibetan martial arts myself for quite some time. And
That's why
and
we're here.
when I told you the name of the style that I do, it was interesting because the name of the style that I do is called Tibetan Lama Pai, and your name is Lama. So I guess we're connected somehow. Right?
We're all connected.
Absolutely.
Dream, and we dreaming each other up. You are, in a sense, a dream character in my dream,
Yeah,
and you dream me up as your dream character.
that's it. When you talked about you studied with your grandfather until you're 18, then with other masters and so forth in
Yes.
Qigong. When did you realize that this was such an important aspect of who you are, that you continued with the lineage that's been passed down to you? And when did you start helping other people learn it?
When I was serving in the military,
Mm,
I was in sergeant school for the first 6 months, and then for another 6 months, I stayed at the sergeant school as a drill sergeant. Nowadays, very few people think of me as a drill sergeant, but yeah, I can be pretty tough.
I
And
getcha.
and then I started complaining to my superiors
Mm,
because I thought it was really stupid what we were doing. We were training our cadets some not very functional martial art moves. I
mm,
mean, nowadays, who pokes somebody with a bayonet and hits
right,
them with the butt of the rifle? That's just really not suitable to modern warfare. And
correct.
so, as I was bringing it up to my commanding officers, they were like, "Oh, you don't want to stay here? We'll ship you out to action." So basically, I spent another year serving in action. I was actually doing bodhisattva work, search and rescue
Gotcha.
in Afghanistan. At the end of the war, there were some soldiers and officers that were missing in action or they were captured as POWs or they were just stuck and couldn't figure out how to get out of this country.
Mm,
And so we went behind enemy lines and rescued them.
mm,
And that was the time when I also had some near death experiences. That's also when I realized that I didn't want to work for the government. Prior to my military service, I went to school for career diplomat training. I was planning on following the path suggested to me by my parents. They said, "Oh, you're interested in exploring the world. Well, explore the world at the government's dime, become a diplomat, and they will send you all over the world to see what is going on around this planet."
mm,
I studied in the career diplomat school, the Institute of International Relations, but then they changed the law.
mm,
Prior to that, students at higher education institutions were not drafted into the military. But the war in Afghanistan was not going well. And so they decided we are going to draft the students. But since they seem to be a little bit more intelligent, we'll give them a chance to become sergeants. When I came back from the military service, I was like, what am I supposed to do with my life now?
yeah,
And also, the country was falling apart.
right.
That was the time when Soviet Union was scrambling and disassembling. I was like, no, there's no country I want to represent as a diplomat.
Mm,
So I focused my education and got a degree in anthropology. But even when I was studying in an institute called Harkit Collegium, where I went after military service, I was like, I don't understand why there is no physical education in
mm,
this entire university. So I talked to the rector or the president of the university, and he said, we just don't have the PE teacher. I said, well, you know what? I don't have PE education, but I'm very experienced in training people.
mm,
Why don't you hire me, but don't pay me anything? I
mm.
will work in exchange for my tuition.
Yeah.
So that was a self arranged scholarship for myself, bartered physical education, which basically boiled down to training people in Kung Fu and other martial arts. I studied Kung Fu, karate, Taekwondo, Tai Chi, Muay Thai, Aikido, basically anything from the most internal to the most external. That's our approach in Qidao, that you don't just study one thing and think that this is the best thing since sliced bread. Develop the breadth of knowledge and then go into depth of knowledge. So I started by exploring a variety of different styles and different schools, but then also went into depths. So I got a black belt in Aikido.
Mm,
I started practicing and teaching Tai Chi and became a Qigong master. By master, I mean I started healing people. I also was teaching classes and helping people develop to higher level of their own energy mastery. And when I moved to the United States, that's what I started doing for a living. I was a refugee back then. I received religious asylum in the US. The first Tibetan Lama from Ukraine to get religious asylum in the United States. I was 25 years old in
Mm,
1995. And so I was like, what am I supposed to do now? So I started teaching what I knew and established Academy of Qidao in Portland, Oregon in
mm,
2000,
mm,
and also created Portland Qigong Clinic. So for a number of years, I was doing Qigong as a therapy.
mm,
And eventually I realized that people heal when and to the degree that they're ready to heal. No amount of therapeutic intervention is going to help the person if they're not ready. But when
mm,
they are ready, they experience spontaneous remission, they experience miraculous healings, they
mm.
heal. And so that's when I also started developing this new profession of Qigong coaching. I was studying with a number of different coaches, with Michael Hall, and anyone from Tony Robbins to Brendan Burchard, Bill Barron, a few other coaches.
That's how you started your coaching when you got your asylum here in the US, right? That was in 1995.
Well, I
When
came to the US in 1995, got asylum in 97. It took a couple of
90s.
years to
Gotcha.
go through the paperwork, jump through some hoops.
So
And
2000 is when you started coaching, right?
quite, I traveled around. I lived on the East Coast, in the West Coast. I lived in Hawaii
Mm,
for a couple of years. And then I moved back stateside. And that's when I ended up in Portland. I liked Portland. That's where I established Academy of Qidao, which became my main business ever since.
mm,
A year or two later, I created Portland Qigong Clinic. I was doing Qigong therapy for a few years. And over the course of these years, I was noticing how people would experience amazing breakthroughs right before my eyes in the process of receiving Qigong therapy sessions. But then they would go home and I would see them again a week or two later, and they almost always backslid.
mm.
And I was like, well, did you do any of the meditations they prescribed? Oh, no, I forgot.
Yeah.
Well, did you implement any of those lifestyle changes that I recommended? No, I had some friends coming from out of town. Did you pay any attention to your postural alignment at least?
Mm,
Oh, no, I didn't do that either. So basically, I realized that people are less likely to do that which they did not decide to do. Somebody else decided for them.
correct.
And I was like, well, so they need to become internally motivated. They need to actually want and desire and commit to making changes. Nobody is going to do it for them. It's like you take horse to water, but can't make it drink, let's say.
That's right. That's
I
right.
started searching
Go
high and
ahead.
low for some kind of modality that would help achieve that. I studied anything from pressure to hypnosis and NLP and a variety of other modalities. Nothing was really motivating people from within until I found coaching. I
Mm,
realized coaching actually is that modality that helps people develop inner motivation. The question is, how do you integrate it with the Qigong that I was teaching? And so I started asking people. I was involved in National Qigong Association at that time, and I was asking people on the board and other thought leaders, what do you know about this? Do you know anyone who practices Qigong coaching? And everyone was like, what are you talking about? No, we don't do that. I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to create this new profession of Qigong coaching, integrating the ancient energy arts with the modern coaching methodologies of peak performance and high performance coaching.
I love how you integrated the Eastern with the Western because when we can mix that ideology or that method, it brings so much nourishment for the mind and the body. What would you say is a key ingredient that any coach should understand when it comes to being an incredible coach?
Coaching is not the same thing as teaching.
Mm,
Many coaches fall back or default to teaching. Many of them have teaching background or
Mhm.
therapy background. And so I often see coaches, especially when they do group coaching programs, they basically default to teaching. And coaching is not teaching. Coaching is not just downloading information into the client's brains and expecting them to do what you tell them to do.
Right.
That's totally different approach. So the key that everyone who is involved in coaching needs to really be clear about is that coaching is not about downloading information. It's
Mm.
about inspiring the coaching clients to discover what is true for them, develop authentic awareness of their values, their purpose, of what they are really committed to, and then create their authentic strategies for manifesting that which they commit to manifesting. The coach helps them develop those strategies and, most importantly, helps them by providing accountability to make sure that they do what they say they would do.
Absolutely. When we look back, even 10, 20 years ago, there was not as many coaches back then as there is today. And
Yes,
it has grown to be probably one of the fastest growing industries. And there's no regulation as to someone becoming a coach. People
right.
can say, I'm certified on this, that, the other, but there's no real regulation. Why are so many coaches not great or successful
For that
when they,
exact reason.
right? Because they're not getting deeper into the modality of working with the individual from the internal to the external, right?
Exactly. A lot of coaches who are in the business of training other coaches make money just by teaching other people how to become coach.
Right.
In other words, it's kind of like a diploma mill. Like you said, it's an unregulated profession. So you don't even have to be certified. You can just hang the shingle of being a coach and pronounce yourself to be a coach of some sort. The trick is that many people feel inadequate. And so they procrastinate or they hold back or
Mhm.
they're not committed to actually jumping fully into the coaching pool, so to speak. And so those are usually collecting a lot of certifications without actually doing the work.
Right.
But then there is also the other extreme of people jumping into doing the work without having the knowledge, expertise, and so these two are really funny dynamics. The
Correct.
dynamic of not trusting oneself enough, not giving themselves permission to do something, and the other ones who give themselves permission without knowing what they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
So finding the sweet spot, the balance point between these two is as challenging as connecting the East with West. These two extremes also are very, very popular in
Mhm.
coaching and many other professions. What is crucial is to find the balance point between being too confident and
Mhm.
thinking, okay, I'm really ready. I'm going to go and conquer the world
Right.
on one hand. And on the other hand, just collecting training and never actually putting it to good use. I think that is basically the challenge for most coaches, and also the lack of training in how to do business as coaches.
Right.
In my school, I dedicate the same amount of time to business development as I spent training people in the modality of Qigong coaching because I don't want to just produce more Qigong coaches. I want to produce more successful Qigong coaches. I want people to make living doing what I teach, and not just have a title or spend time and money learning it without putting it to good use.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on a coach who doesn't have a coach? Because for me personally, I have mentors, I have coaches who I can share ideas with, or I can tell them I'm thinking about this and they'll guide me a little bit.
Mhm,
Also, mentors who have done it, have lived it. One of my oldest mentors is 82 years old, and the man is just
mhm.
brilliant, right? That's the kind of coach I want, somebody who is in the game, who is being coached, who doesn't know all the answers always, right? I don't want a coach who knows all the answers because they stop growing. What are your thoughts?
I 100% agree. There is no pinnacle of personal development. Anyone who claims to have reached a level of mastery where they just don't need to master anything anymore, they're full of shit. And
Yeah.
they are not really continuing the journey. They just got stuck somewhere on the plateau. We don't want to receive coaching from those people who are stuck. They won't help us get unstuck. You can't give that which you don't have. So, just like you said, every coach needs to have a coach. I had a coach back in the States. Now I moved to Denmark. I hired a Danish coach. Wherever I go, I always learn more things. I always continue growing, continue developing myself. There is no end to this journey. We are not on the journey to mastery. We are on the journey of mastery. The journey of mastery means each and every step is a continuation of the process of becoming more and more masterful. And
Right.
as you progress along the path, the challenges don't become any less. As you
Oh,
progress along the path, you encounter greater and greater challenges. It's just like if you're a first grader, what's the math challenge that you're going to be given?
mm,
1 + 1 = 2, something like that. Now go to the second grade, it's going to be more challenging.
right.
Go to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, go to 10th grade. Well, they're going to be dealing with a lot more complicated math
Mm,
problems. They don't get any simpler, they keep becoming more complicated. You go to college, it's not going to get any easier. You go to graduate school, it's not going to get any easier. Go to post grad school, it's not going to get any easier. Basically, it's like an ongoing journey of improvement.
mhm,
If we are not improving, we're backsliding. So
right.
those coaches who do not continue growing basically stagnate. Who wants to receive coaching from a stagnating coach?
Not me.
You have to walk a good walk, not just talk a good talk, right?
That's right, without a doubt. That's why I'm in the trenches, because for me to be able to help anyone in the world, I have to be in it. I can't just say it from theory. Theory is great, but action speaks louder than words for me, right?
For sure. I
With
totally agree with you, with
yeah,
one exception. I
go
want
ahead.
to help everyone in the world.
You
I
wanna help
promised myself a
those
long
who
time
wanna
ago
be
I will only work with coachable people.
that's you're beating yourself against the wall when you're trying to help somebody who doesn't want the help, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
What determines the coachable person? What are the characteristics of coachability?
Mm,
Well, it's intrinsic motivation, the openness and curiosity to learn, ability to take responsibility for your experiences. There are a few other characteristics of coachability,
mm,
but these are important ones without which I would not accept the person as my coaching client. And
correct.
nowadays, I don't accept a lot of people as my coaching clients because I charge a lot of money. So I much rather farm them out to my students or apprentices who are happy to take them on as coaching clients. And I'm happy that they are doing good work. And I'm busy training the new generation of Qigong coaches. When I moved to Denmark, I created a new startup
Oh, you
called
did?
Resilience Center.
Mm.
Because when I moved to Denmark, I noticed this is one of the happiest countries in the world on paper, but everyone complains about being stressed,
Mm,
about being burned out. They're taking year-long sabbaticals from work, and they
mm.
ask them when they're going to go back to work. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to go back to work. Maybe I'm going to get retired. I'm like, aren't you kind of young to get retired?
Mm.
In Denmark, you can get retired at a young age if you can't work.
Right.
Why can't he work? It's too stressful. I'm
Mm.
not kidding. I had dozens of conversations with people, and almost everyone I've ever spoken to mentioned at least one episode of burnout in their personal career. I'm like, why are people getting burned out? Aren't they really resilient, the tough spring of Vikings? Well, thousands of years ago, when Vikings raped and pillaged most of Europe, they were tough as nails.
Right.
But things changed since then. For thousands of years, there's been relative peace. There were some skirmishes here and there, but Denmark has lived relatively peaceful existence. They literally had no significant wars, no natural disasters either. I
Mm.
asked people here, how often do you get storms? Well, we
Mm.
don't really get any storms.
Mm.
Not even like hurricanes or like tornadoes. They're like, what's tornado? Don't you get some tsunamis? No, we don't get any tsunamis. Well, obviously, no volcanic eruptions because there are no volcanoes. The whole place is like flat as a pancake.
Mm.
Don't you get some flash floods? No, we don't have any flash floods. Ice storms? No ice storms. Mudslides? No, no mudslides. Basically, no natural disasters.
Great
Crime.
place to live.
It's a
Right.
fantastic place to live if you grow up in this situation where everything is just really peaceful and easy. As they put it themselves, they get fat and happy. They're not really fat. They all bicycle around, so they're kind of skinny.
Mm.
But a lot of people suffer from stress. And I was
Mm.
wondering why. So I kept coming to Denmark because I exfiltrated my parents from Ukraine when the war broke out there
Mm.
and helped them settle down in Denmark. And then also kept coming back and helping some other Ukrainian refugees. I kept traveling to Denmark over the course of the last 3 years, like 6 or 7 times. And every time I was so puzzled, why are people so stressed? They're living really comfortable existence. This is a welfare state. If you don't feel like working, you just don't work. Then I realized they don't have a lot of resilience. That muscle
Yeah.
doesn't get much training, and if you don't use it, you lose it.
Lose it, absolutely.
And
One of
so
the
I
things
created a resilience center.
I love it, I love it. One of the things that somebody asked me not too long ago, they said, "Are you afraid that AI is gonna take over your job?" I have my answer, but I'd love to hear yours. How is AI gonna affect coaching? How is it gonna affect industry overall, but mostly coaching?
Well, obviously, I can speak for coaching industry a lot more intelligently just because I'm in the trenches. As a matter of fact, my new startup is AI forward startup.
Mhm.
We are creating AI based solutions in resilience training, in coaching. Yes, AI will replace a lot of coaches, especially the ones that are not particularly good. It's really hard to replace a particularly good coach with AI because what we do as coaches, and I believe what we do is something really unique in coaching profession. So we have a really good chance of surviving the onslaught of AI revolution
Right.
is we teach embodiment.
Yeah.
AI doesn't have any knowledge of embodiment. I communicate with AI. I work with several different AI platforms. I use AI every day in my business. And I often go through some kind of research and development with AI, but it's not really helpful with anything embodiment related.
Right.
It just doesn't have the experience.
Mhm.
It can collect the data, but it doesn't know what it's like to be in the human body. It may have anatomy and physiology theory, AI can read the textbook on anatomy, but it doesn't know what it's like to actually feel the movement. It doesn't know what it's like to be balanced or not balanced. It doesn't know what it's like to breathe one way or another way. Basically, it doesn't have the depth of the physical embodied experience that is not only essential for humans to have, but it's also the cornerstone of my coaching modality. I don't just coach from the head. I engage the entire body in the coaching process, use it as a metaphor, and engage the coaching client to learn how to use their body in most efficient and intelligent way.
Right.
So that becomes a totally different type of coaching compared to most styles of coaching, and also something that is very unlikely that AI will be able to replicate.
I agree. I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen it too, and probably most people watching, they've seen AI robots doing martial arts. They're doing flips now. It looks pretty incredible. That's the question I was asked. In a few years, you won't be able to teach the classes because they'll just go to a robot and it'll teach them, especially if they start buying these Tesla robots, they can learn at home. Why do people even need to do martial arts anymore? If they get a robot, that's their security guard. They're going to take care of the
Bodyguard.
kids. They're going to wash the dishes. They're going to do the laundry. Why are you so passionate about what you do? I said, because no one can replace the human interaction that I have with my students. No robot could ever do that. No robot can truly care, can see how they walk in, how you feeling, why do you look sad, or why are you so happy? What's going on with your life? If a robot is going to learn how to look and see somebody's ideas, but they're not going to fully understand it, like you said.
Well, at least the ones that currently exist don't have the embodied experience. They can have two arms and two legs operating mechanically and making some
Right.
moves, but it's not the experience of being alive. What we study and practice is how to become more fully alive. And there's no life without movement. So we learn how to move in a way that facilitates the sense of aliveness. We develop kinesthetic awareness, the awareness of movement, without which you can't really develop a gracefulness, precision, and power as in Kung Fu or any other martial arts. But you also need to experience some pain
Right.
and suffering, which robots are not going to experience the same way as humans.
Mhm.
Why is it important? Because it gives you the full spectrum of experience. It
Mhm.
also triggers certain neurotransmitters and hormones that are important for experiencing life more fully. For example, endorphins. It's endogenously produced morphine, essentially. It's the painkiller that you produce when you are experiencing some discomfort or pain. Without having any endorphins, you're not going to experience runner's high. You're not going to experience the sense of being in the flow. Basically, you are often going to be operating at the suboptimal range. What happens when we train at the high level is that we don't try to avoid pain and suffering. We actually recognize that it's a par for the course and we don't run away from it. We face it, we learn how to handle it. Now, that's resilience, embodied resilience. It's not something that a lot of people want to expose themselves to because it doesn't sound too appealing. Who wants to feel pain? Who wants to have suffering in their lives? But I've never heard of anyone who achieved any degree of enlightenment without having gone through significant suffering. Have
Oh,
you?
yeah. Not at all. Me personally, I've got plenty of it.
It's what it takes.
We need stress in our lives. If you're going to lift weights, you're stressing the muscle in order to be able to lift the weight. You got to stress it.
Yeah.
There's good stress and there's bad stress. And when you talked about stress earlier, comes to that resilience part. They're stressed because they don't know how to deal with it. I'm so happy that I'm part of what you're doing. It's coming up on April 25th through the 27th. Talk to us about World Resilience Summit.
As you said, World Resilience Summit is coming up on April 25th, 26th, and 27th. 3 days of a deep dive into the art and science of learning how to develop stress mastery. I coined this term stress mastery because I realized it's not stress management that people need. Stress management is like trying to manage and mitigate stress, trying to reduce stress or prevent stress. We don't want to run away from stress. We want to master it. How do you master stress? Well, like one of the guys who is probably one of the most resilient individuals on the planet right now, Wim Hof, is known for going into this cold, icy water, literally immersing himself into unpleasant environment. He's not the only one, not the first one. Tibetan lamas way before him practiced Tumo for thousands of years. Tumo is the traditional Tibetan Qigong style associated with the generation of inner heat. Basically, spending some time in cold environments is not pleasant, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Now, a lot of folks nowadays are not excited about experiencing anything even remotely close to killing them because it's like, oh, it could kill me? Well, forget it.
Not
I'm going
doing
somewhere else.
it.
If you tell your students to take cold showers every time they take a shower, just finish it with a cold shower for a minute or two.
Mm.
How many people will actually do it?
It's so interesting. I've been taking cold showers for I can't even recall when I started. It's been that long. I look forward to it. That's the crazy thing because the cool thing about a cold shower is different than a cold plunge. It's so different because you actually almost have to rotate like a rotisserie, if you will, in order to get everything done, right? It's a shock to the system and it's a beautiful thing because you can stay in it long, but probably 3 minutes is what I do every time. Sometimes I go 4 minutes. Your body goes into shock, and then all of a sudden you feel so much more alive because you've woken up your entire body. It's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Yes, awakening is what we're here for. We're not here to fall further asleep. We are here for awakening purpose
Correct.
in terms of spiritual awakening, in terms of physical body awakening, awakening our physiology, awakening our nervous system so that we are not sluggish, we are not wimpy, we are resilient and capable of handling whatever life throws at us. Some people say, yeah, okay, you are a commando. You have been through a lot of tough situations. You just used to it. And my response is, guess what? Not only did I experience some shitty times in my personal life, but I also overcame PTSD
Mm,
back then when it was not even diagnosed as such. How did I do it? I instinctively figured out that it's about recreating the unpleasant experiences in your mind. And instead of running away from those dreams, essentially those are daydreams, but the daydreams that kind of turn into a nightmare of sorts. And instead, facing, just like any psychologist would agree, if you suffer from fear, most efficient way to deal with it is facing it.
that's it.
And as you do that, you become inoculated to stress. That's what I did myself. I overcame PTSD and I experienced it also when I got kidnapped.
Really.
Yes, I had a bodyguarding company in Ukraine in the early 90s, and a bodyguard got kidnapped himself.
Mm,
I thought, what could possibly go wrong? This is a bodhisattva work. I'm
uh,
saving people's lives. This is something that I really valued. And I thought I was doing okay. But
yeah.
apparently, I was stepping on some people's toes. So I got kidnapped, held
Mm,
for ransom. Most people would be completely devastated by being kidnapped. I actually managed to overcome that relatively quickly, just continuing awakening. to the dreamlike nature of that experience.
Yeah.
I was basically becoming more and more lucid in the dream, realizing, oh, wait, I can turn it into a nightmare on a dime if I choose. I can turn it into a learning opportunity
Yeah.
and learn as much as humanly possible from this dire situation. And then feel grateful for having this experience in my life. Sounds like a really crazy idea to be grateful for being kidnapped, right?
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I did.
Mm.
I transcended the dread or the PTSD or the trauma. So nowadays, people are like, you're one of the most calm and lucid veterans, and you're not traumatized even by a kidnapping. I'm like, yeah, I'm a resilient mofo. I know how to do it myself. I can help you develop.
That's beautiful. So, Lama, how long were you kidnapped for, and how did you get out of it?
I was kidnapped for 3 days, during which my business partner and that bodyguarding business managed purportedly to sell it.
Mm.
And my portion of the proceeds from the sale served as the ransom.
Really?
The
Wow.
tricky thing is that I never seen him ever since.
Mm.
He just vanished, disappeared from my radar. I don't know what happened to him. There are all kinds of interesting theories and suspicions float around, but again, it's the realm of conjure and hallucination. So I look at it as a dream. Okay, I can focus on the dream that I don't resonate with and turn it into a nightmare, but I also have the freedom of choice. And in this particular case, I did not figure out whatever happened. I just moved to the United States.
There you go. So
Yeah.
you created a resilience center where you are now. Why did you decide to do a World Resilience Summit? What was that all about?
Obviously, it's not the first time I'm organizing a summit. I started organizing summits of Qigong masters since 2012. First one back then on 12/12/12. I thought, "Oh, that is such an auspicious date." So we held the summit dedicated to conscious human evolution. And back then, video was not easy to organize and broadcast. So it was all audio. It still was great. 12 Qigong masters coming together and talking about their particular approaches to conscious human evolution. The
Mm.
problem was that it wasn't very well attended. I mean, it was relatively well attended for the first summit ever, like
Right,
1,000
right.
people or so. But then I realized maybe conscious human evolution is what I'm interested in, and maybe a few other Qigong masters, but it's not the topic that is on top of people's minds and high priority. They don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning feeling, damn it, I'm not evolving consciously well enough. So I paused my summit organizing activities until 2 years later when I organized the first summit on abundance. I also did another one last year, exactly 10 years later. Over the course of these 10 years, I organized numerous other summits, World Tai Chi and Qigong summits, and World Qigong congresses. A
Mhm.
friend of mine, Bill Douglas, who's also going to be a presenter at our summit
Nice.
coming up next week, a co-founder of World Tai Chi and Qigong Day.
Mm.
So we actually going to celebrate it during the World Resilience Summit on April 26th. And a
Nice.
lot of Qigong teachers will be presenting on that day. There's also another reason I wanted to organize this summit. I'm entering a relatively new profession. Resilience is such a broad field. It can be personal resilience for people who want to develop greater inner strength and vitality and ability to relax under pressure. Then
Mm.
there is also organizational resilience. How do you bring that to the teams and companies and other organizations? And how to make them sustainable? Sustainability also can be applied on a broader scale. For example, nations. How do you make a nation sustainable, both in terms of financial sustainability, so it doesn't go bankrupt, but also don't destroy the environment where you live or don't get into political drama that would destroy the society. Basically, my business partner and I realized that there is so much to resilience field that we cannot figure it all out by ourselves. We need help. So we started reaching out to other resilience experts. And we realized nobody's actually organizing any kind of online summit like this. There
Mm,
was one World Resilience Summit organized in 2023, right after the pandemic. It was a face to face event in Switzerland. But ever since they dropped the ball, so we picked it up and carried on. Another thing is that it's a great way to position yourself prominently in this new field.
mm.
How do you make yourself known in the field where you're relatively new? Well, organize other experts and thought leaders and put them under one roof, bring a whole bunch of people interested in the subject matter, and see become basically a thought leader who organizes other thought leaders. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to be part of it. And I know that along the bottom, we have how everybody can join. So join us April 25th through the 27th to be part of this global experience. How many presenters do you have? I know I'm one of them, but I know I'm
25.
not the 25. So,
Yeah,
um,
2 dozen. We have 25 presenters. There is a possibility that we may have even more
mm,
because a lot of new presenters are knocking my doors down. Hey, why didn't you invite me? There's a possibility we'll include one more, but we try to maintain quality over quantity approach,
right.
meaning it's not the number of presenters that's going to make it or break it, it's the quality of the presentations and the entire experience. Over the years, I figured out how to make online summits smooth, effective, enlightening, and also have a long term effect. It's not just an event that happens over the course of 3 days and bye bye. We create an online community of people who are interested in this. Just like last year after World Tai Chi and Qigong Summit, we invited participants to join our online community. Now we have 11,000 strong online community of Tai Chi and Qigong enthusiasts. We expect over 10,000 participants to attend our summit this year. We also offer additional programs, courses, and workshops. I also teach retreats. After this summit, I'm going to teach embodied resilience workshop. Then I'm also going to lead a retreat in the Canary Islands on the same subject of embodied resilience, just a deep dive. Over the course of the year, we also invite our experts and presenters to come back to do some Q&A sessions, to do some master classes, to engage participants in online challenges and things like that. Essentially, it creates a movement.
Right.
And with this movement, we can turn our world into a better place.
Oh, I love that. Wow, what inspiration you are putting all these experts together, creating something so that we have more resilience in the world because we do need it. The world is constantly changing, and if we don't change with it, we're going to get left behind. Like you said, we're going to slide back. Lama, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule because I know how busy you are putting all these things together. I really appreciate you being here with me today. Any last words that you can tell somebody about resilience before we head off?
First of all, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you and your work. It's a fantastic work. Having 7 podcasts is incredible. I have one,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of work. I started that one in 2009, so we're rolling with momentum now. It's number one podcast in the world on Qigong. And what I would love to say to our viewers and those who are listening is you will not find a better way to enhance your resilience for the purpose of improving the quality of your life than by learning from the world top thought leaders and experts on different types of resilience, different approaches, different ways of implementing resilience in your personal or professional life, this is going to be a time and energy well spent. So go to worldresiliencesummit.org, sign up for the World Resilience Summit. If you have any doubts about it, it's a free admission. You can also get a VIP ticket, of course. VIPs get special treatment, they get access to all the recordings for life, also get to participate in the panel discussions. Every day of our summit, we'll have panel discussions where we will have our experts discussing between each other, but also being available to answer questions from the audience. And guess who the audience is going to be? Our VIP participants. And that's something that I think is really beneficial to have access and ability to network with experts. And last but not least, we also have a special scholarship that we offer to our VIPs. When you purchase the VIP ticket for $197, you will actually get a $200 scholarship, which
Wow.
means your VIP ticket will pay for itself.
Oh,
The
yeah.
scholarship applies to the embodiment resilience workshop that I'm going to be presenting a week after the summit on May 4th. So basically, the entire VIP experience will be free of charge for you.
Oh, look at that. That's incredible. Love it. Everybody, do me a
Thank you.
favor. Running across the bottom of the screen is one way you can click on that link and sign up for the summit. I'm one of the presenters, but there are so many incredible presenters that are going to help you understand the true brilliance of being a resilient person in everything that we do in life, in relationships, with family, with business. We need to be more resilient, don't we?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say better than what you just said. I also want to appreciate you for what you do. This is a fantastic service to our community. So thank you so much for doing it.
My pleasure. It's going to be 10,000 people strong. Let's make it 10,001 with you and 10,002 with your cousins and neighbors. Let's make it 11,000. Remember, April 25th through the 27th, it's World Resilience Summit. Come join us. It's going to be a blast. Thank you.